Rolling up some good, going up till we get faded. You know how we do it. Everybody taking flicks of me. I got the keys to the city. I don't need no limousine. I turn up when I pull up. Tell me what
25. I've made $1 million in commissions.
Running around with the paper bag. Going crazy, spending all this cash. Going crazy, spending all this cash. If I spend it, I'ma get it back.
Hey, how's it going? You're the homeowner, right? Welcome back to Awaken Conversations, where we talk about mind, body, soul, and really I try to dig deeper into deeper topics from each individual. The guest today, I actually just met for the first time 2-3 days ago, and never would I've ever expected to have really understood this individual at this level. And so my whole goal today is to uncover the guest today. His name is Riccardo Ricci. For those of you guys who do know, he's done 500 accounts in solar 3 years consecutively, which is insane. But what really impressed me the most was not necessarily how many accounts he's done, not his sales ability, but who he is as an individual and how he thinks and how aligned he is with who I am and my energy. And so I was kind of 50-50 on having him on this early in the podcast, but with how aligned we were, I just had to put him on. So I want to welcome Riccardo.
What up, bro? Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to be here. I feel like those will be fun.
Yeah, bro. We're definitely both flow state individuals, so this will be easy to just tap in. But I'm glad to have met you, bro.
Yeah, same here. It's been a fun last couple of days, so
it has.
We'll go off a few tangents here. It'll be a good time.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely get lost. So I'll kind of start things off. I definitely want to, because this is a topic we haven't gone over yet, and so I for me and then obviously the audience, I kind of want to understand about your upbringing. So obviously you've been massively successful in the industry as a sales guy. In pest, you were what, rookie of the year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I had the rookie record at the time.
Yep.
I don't know if it's been broken. It might have by now.
And then maybe. Vivint?
I had a good first year there. I was top 5 or top 10 rookie, somewhere on there.
Okay. And you've killed it in solar, but I really want to understand how that all kind of came to be. So kind of, I guess, when were you born?
1997. February 26th,
okay.
1997.
So what sign does that make you?
I'm a Pisces.
Do you believe in that?
To a degree. I haven't done a ton of digging on it. I've had a couple horoscopes done and things like that, and it's pretty on point. I would say, like, if you follow that, for the most part, I'm a pretty stereotypical Pisces. If you go by like kind of the definition of it, I feel like.
Have you looked at like the other signs or whatever?
No, I can't say I have. No, I'm super interested in it. I just haven't. I can't figure out what my whole timing of birth and stuff like that is. So yeah. I didn't figure it out.
Yeah, I got kind of deep into it at one point, but then I realized like they all describe me. Yeah. So I'm like, anyways. Okay, so you were born in 1997. So what does that make you? 27?
27. About to go on 28 here soon. A couple months, 3-4 months. Next February, on 28.
There you go. So, where were you born?
Italy. Okay. Italy, yeah.
So you're a migrant, immigrant.
Yeah, you can say that. you can say that. Yeah. And
when did you come over?
I came freshman year of college. So I was born and raised in Italy. I lived there until I was 19. Middle school, high school, everything there. I moved here on a college scholarship originally to play soccer. I moved to Florida. That's kind of how it all came to be. So I was 19 my freshman year.
There you go. How was that transition?
This is interesting. It was very cool. It's kind of like off, like just kind of unplanned, really. I made the decision, and I kind of laugh back at it now, and I tell people all the time, and I really just still remember the day I made the decision to just kind of come to the U.S. And it was literally
so that was split.
You. Yeah. It was. I kind of had a day where I remember literally having this thought, and just to kind of backtrack, and we can maybe go back on it, but I was playing professional soccer at the time. I played kind of professional my whole life. I went through professional academy, and then I was on first team for a few years. And I went through a few injuries, kind of went through a bit of a tumultuous time there, kind of questioning my career and everything. I just remember one day I watched a movie, and I can't remember what movie it was actually. It's funny enough, but I watched this movie about U.S., university, college sports, something like that. I had a light bulb kind of go on. And yeah, I'm doing that. And then I found a guy, sent an email. He had my soccer resume, and they kind of took care of the whole process. It was like a 30-second decision. Went through that process, and I made that decision pretty quick. Next thing you know, I told my parents, I was like, hey, I'm graduating high school. You know, whatever, in a month or two, I'm going to go to the U.S. next year. Like, they didn't even have a clue that I was even looking at it. So it was just a very quick thing.
So question on that, and I want you to continue, but that's kind of how I've lived my life. Like, a lot of my biggest decisions, you could say, have been made like split decision.
Yeah.
Is that like a common theme for you, or was that like kind of the only thing you've done that?
No, I feel like I tend to do that with everything.
Really?
Yeah, overall, I tend to just go with, if I have a feeling and I just feel like it's the right decision, I do it pretty fast. I'm not a big overthinker or planner, I would say, when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, pretty much everything I do is just pretty fast split. Yeah.
And that's what surprised me about Ricardo in the first place, because when we first met, I didn't really have any expectations, but I figured you'd be a lot more systems and processes guy, especially doing what you've done in solar. I figured it had to have been that way. And it was a pleasant surprise to see how flow you are and how like we are in that way. Because I make a lot of decisions that way, and people kind of think they think I'm just too risky.
Yeah.
Do you kind of feel like people think that way about you, or?
Yeah, people tell me I'm crazy all the time
Really?
or like random stuff. Yeah, overall, I would say so. I just think I don't perceive anything as risky really when you really break it down to it. So I don't.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, ultimately, I think the way I go off of my intuition for the most part, and this is something I've also learned over time, and the more decisions you make and the more you usually tend to make the right decisions over time, it just kind of builds that kind of confidence in your own intuition and kind of knowing that you're going with the right thing. So I've built that over time, and now I feel like I just follow kind of what I feel, and I have pretty quick decisions, and it's usually right. I've made bad decisions and I've made wrong decisions, obviously, but funny enough, most of the bad decisions or the wrong decisions, you could say, and to go deeper, ultimately, there's no wrong decision, right? But if we're going to go off of that, it's the decisions I actually took the longest or like thought about the most or put the most like logical thought into are usually the ones that turned out to not be as good. Whereas every time I just followed my instincts and just went with what I felt the first second and my gut, right, that usually turns out to be good. And so overall, I kind of feel like I built that trust.
So
right?
how do you listen to that voice, that intuitive, how do you feel it? How do you listen to it? How do you tune into it?
I feel like everyone has it. I just feel it, right? I just have it. I can't quite pinpoint it, right? I can't quite say it's something that I'm looking for, that I'm like just kind of searching for. It's just, I feel like I'm pretty intuitive as a person in general. And I just come off of different things. I can just feel vibes, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
How does it come through? Is it like a voice? Is it a feeling in your body? Is it like, how do you listen? Like what does that come?
It's both. It's usually a thought. But it's kind of hard to pinpoint, right? It's almost like, yeah, it's very hard to pinpoint exactly how that comes through. It's just intuition is like a feeling. I almost see things play out in the future sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, I can kind of see how this is gonna play out, right. and I just see it quick. And I just see it. I can't even kind of quite pinpoint why I'm feeling it. It's just there. And then I just act on it for the most part. And so it's kind of like a gut
you
feeling,
just execute.
Right? Yeah, for the most part. And I've learned over time, and it's not to say that you're always right. I mean, I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life, right? But over time, it's kind of like that understanding that the faster you act, you're going to make bad decisions regardless, right? And so whether you take a week to make a bad decision or a month or a day or an hour or a second, you're going to get it right or wrong regardless. The one thing that changes is if you get it wrong quickly, you act fast, you find out it's wrong fast, you course correct quick. And so if you're taking a week to make a decision and I'm taking a minute to make a decision or 30 seconds, I'm going to make 50 decisions before you made one. And I could be wrong 40 times and I can course correct. By the time you made your first decision, I'm already ahead, right? So I always see everything that way. Few things, but very rarely something in life is like irreversible, right? Unless we're coming down to really, really serious things. And so everything can just be reversed. I can make a decision, act on it, turn out it's wrong, course correct, move on, as opposed to take forever and you're just stuck, right? That's kind of how I feel.
So you came to America.
Yeah.
And then what happened after you touched down? You followed this intuitive feeling. You made this call. How were your parents? Like, how did everybody back home take that?
They were surprised, but I mean, they were supportive. I'm blessed. I mean, my parents, so my family, like they were always very supportive of me, and I feel like even before I ever moved to the U.S., I mean, I moved away from home when I was 16 because I was playing professional soccer. So I moved away early. My whole life, really, since I was 6 or 7, I played soccer really seriously. Right, I would train every day, twice a day at some point. And so my parents and my family in general just always kind of pushed me to follow whatever I wanted to do, and I kind of always had some sort of vision or goal, right? Whether it was related to sports or something else. So they were just always supportive. They didn't kind of know why that came to be, and like I figured out the whole U.S. thing before I even really told them it was a thing. By the time I made that decision, I didn't tell them. Probably spent a couple more months talking to people to make it happen, and I told them when it was basically almost done, right? And so they were surprised. They're like, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" But other than that, they were supportive. They were stoked. So that's good. That's something that I'm very thankful for.
So you said 19.
I was 19. Yeah.
So you came here at 19, and then what happened?
I went through college. So that was freshman year of college, and
your intention was soccer.
I came with the intention to get an education. Soccer was the vehicle,
Okay.
right? And so I played professional. I played soccer, I would say seriously, right? In Europe. And then when I made the decision to come to the US, in my mind, I had made the decision to just pursue other things, right? Mm-hmm. If I wanted to keep pursuing soccer in a serious way, I would have stayed in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I made that decision, it was kind of a hard decision for a second, because that was the decision when I said, okay, that was my childhood dream. I feel like I've gone pretty far into it, but I didn't quite get to exactly where I wanted it to go. And I just kind of had to make that decision of I'm just going to let it sit there and go do other things and kind of pursue something else. So when I came to the US, my intention wasn't on soccer. Soccer was the vehicle that got me here. Right? Got me a scholarship, got everything paid for, whatever. But it kind of got me into where I wanted to be, right? Which was like, I wanted to get my degree. I wanted to explore other interests. I wanted to get into business and other things. So that was kind of my vehicle to do so, right?
So just opportunity in general. You saw more opportunity here and you just felt like it would be better. It was more of a feeling than a logical thing?
Yeah, I would say so. And a big thing for me, it's always been, I had, and just to give some perspective maybe, I had basically spent my whole life just playing soccer, right? That was like always from the time I was 6 to the time I was 19 or 18, that was my singular focus. That is all I ever cared about. That was my only goal, right? So I never even really thought about what I would do outside of soccer, because I was just very tunnel vision of like, this is what I'm going to do, right? And I did that 15 years of my life without ever questioning it. I had a couple injuries. Like I said, I broke my ankle a few times. That kept me out for 6 months. I went back, broke it again, kept me out another 3 to 4 months. So that I was 18 at the time. I broke it the first time I was 17 and then 18. I would say that was the first, year of my life where I ever had anything else to kind of think about or focus on outside of soccer, right? And so I just kind of had this moment when I was 18 and I was like, wow, it's the first time literally since I was 7 that I'm doing something else. Or like, at least I can't play soccer. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm injured. I started to focus on other things and develop other interests. And that kind of just like a world kind of opened up to me, right? I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to play soccer. I can, but I don't have to. There's all these other things that I can do. And then in a way, I always felt like soccer, in a way, obviously gave me a lot of opportunity. That's ultimately why I'm here, through soccer. And so I'm very grateful. But I also at the time felt like it was somewhat holding me back. I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to do an exchange here in high school. I couldn't do that because I was playing professional soccer. I always wanted to go do things and go on vacations and do certain things. I could just never do it because I was literally playing soccer very high level. I was training twice a day, every day. It's no time off. So everyone's traveling, everyone's going on vacation, everyone's doing these things. I never did that until I was 18 because that was my singular focus. And so when I kind of got removed, I just kind of opened up a whole other thing. I'm like, oh, wow, there's another world out there that I can kind of go and do a bunch of other stuff with, and I don't have to do it. So that was kind of just an opening type.
So you come here, you go to college, and then after college, what happens?
Well, I got into sales in college. I got in sales my junior year of college. Started out at Vivint kind of as a summer thing. Never really thought anything of it. I thought I would just do it for a summer, make some good money, have some fun, and then go back to doing something else, right? And so I did that. I got recruited from Vivint my junior year, kind of out of the blue. It was a pretty random thing. It was online. It was very last minute. I actually had another internship lined up that was really good at a Fortune 500 company. I'm not going to say names or anything for podcast sake, but I had a very good internship lined up. And last minute, I just dropped it to do Vivint. And again, like logically, I can't tell you why I did it. It was just a feeling that I had, right? Like I didn't feel like I wanted to go in the corporate thing. And so I had these on paper really good internship. My parents were super happy. And then just like last minute, I just told them, hey, mom, dad, like I'm not doing this. I'm just going to go sell door to door some alarm systems.
They probably thought you were crazy.
Think about that,
huh?
right? Yeah, that was crazy. They got mad, right? They were pissed for a while. But think about that, right? Like they have no idea. They're in Italy. They have no idea what even door to door sales is. They're not even in the, They have no clue. So in their mind, they're all proud about that. And I just literally last minute, like a week before the internship was going to start or 2 weeks before, I just said, no, I'm just going to go do this thing. I just feel like I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I liked it. And I met some of the guys and I liked it. I liked the vibe. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to do it.
There you go. Yeah. I actually did marketing as my degree.
Yeah.
And my mom did marketing. And she was just like, when I decided to do door to door and pest control for 2 years, she was like, what are you doing? Like she literally thought I was crazy.
Yep.
And then now she doesn't, but
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's crazy how it like all comes around. Now I'm like, I'm able to take care of her and everything. And it's just
100%.
like,
100%.
You got to push through. Like, I guess, yeah, we can talk about that in a second, but I feel like you just got to zone out sometimes. Like a theme that I'm catching already, just before we even get into anything else, is that when you focus and you're just all in, you kind of just got to put the blinders on. And it's just like, you got to, even your family, right? Just everybody. If you want to be massively successful and a true visionary, they're going to see something no one else sees, right?
Yeah, I think so. I feel like that's a pretty common thread in kind of my whole life, I guess. If you look through, I've had multiple of those moments that are tough in that moment, but you look back and you're like, wow, that was really what did it, right? And I tend to, when I see something, like I see it, I have a goal, I have a vision, it's just kind of all I can think about, right? I get pretty obsessive in a way over things.
Like we all, yeah.
And so I get really blinders on. I'm not going to say that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing as far as getting things done.
Yeah.
There's some drawbacks to that also, right? I can get too locked in on something.
Would you say you have an addictive personality?
Yeah, probably. I would.
Like, are you that way in other areas of your life? Because I've always been that way with like partying. I mean everything, women. Like for me, it's like when I am on to a subject, whatever that subject is, I'm there and I'm all in. And
yeah, I would say so. If you say addictive, yeah, probably. I wouldn't say I'm addicted to anything. Probably obsessive in a way.
Okay.
I just get obsessed over one thing or a couple of things that I care about. And there's not very many things I can get obsessed over, but there's 2, 3, 4 things over my life maybe that I got obsessed over. And once I am obsessed over something, that's all I care about. Nothing else. Everything kind of just falls in the background. And I'm just blinders on and executing, which is, like I said, it's good for certain things. It's not so good for other things, but I think it's necessary.
Where have you found that it's been... Because obviously you've been successful and you've done some things, but where would you say it's been a negative thing for you?
It's a good question. I feel like overall it can be a little isolating, obviously. I mean, if you have to be willing to be misunderstood for a period of time, usually a decently long period of time, like at least a year. When I first started doing sales, it really didn't even click for my parents until year 2. Right, and that's your parents. So those.
What did you do that first year? So the first year you did door to door, that was with Vivint.
Vivint, yeah.
Okay, what did you do that? Like, how many accounts?
What did I do? I was only out for a couple months because I was playing soccer still at the time in college. So I went out late and I left early because I had preseason. So I only did 2.5 months, and I feel like I did 100 and something, 120, 130 accounts.
What did that translate to dollars?
It wasn't a huge amount. Ultimately, it was. I mean, to me at the time it was a huge amount, but wasn't that big in the grand scheme of things. I think I ended up making 40 or 50 grand.
Okay.
That summer. And that was, I mean, we can get into the whole different thing. That
sure.
doesn't matter. But it was a negligible amount, obviously, in the grand scheme of things. But to me at the time, I'd never made 50 grand. So
Yeah.
kind of went back to college after that in 2 months. I really worked 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And,
That's
and
big
I
money back then.
didn't even prepare or anything. So that was significant, but it wasn't anything life-changing, or it wasn't anything my parents or anyone else was kind of impressed over. But I just feel like you have to, like we said, go through that period of you being misunderstood, and it takes kind of a long time for everyone else to kind of see what you're seeing. But in that moment, or the year or 2 or 3 that it takes, it's alienating sometimes, right? Or whatever you want to say is just, and people don't do it out of bad intent. Obviously, your parents love you, your friends love you, your significant other loves you. They don't do it out of bad intent. It's just they can't quite see it. And
They don't understand you.
They don't get it. You can't quite put it into words. You just see something.
And they haven't done what you're trying to do.
Go after it. And so it all makes sense looking backwards, but it just never makes sense in the moment. And
so what was the was it after that first summer, or was it the second summer that it kind of clicked for them? Because for me, it was about, I think once I made 6 figures, my mom was like, oh, like that's not normal. And even my grandparents, like my granddad was kind of like my dad, and he was very hard against it. He was like, get a real job, get a real career. This isn't going to last forever. This is just fast money. And that's my like direct family. So obviously you're kind of the same way. Like, was it summer 1, summer 2? Like, at what point do you remember?
I want to say the real click was maybe year 3.
And why do you feel like it clicked?
2 reasons. I mean, number one, for me, my thing, it was specific, I guess, to my situation is I'm not an American citizen. Mm-hmm. So I graduated and I was on a student visa. And after you graduate college, you have a year to basically stay in the US and figure your stuff out and get a visa. If you don't get a visa, you got to go back. And at that time, I knew I wanted to stay, at least for a while. And I looked into all sorts of types of visa. Long story short, I found the only way I could actually stay in the country was to get a business visa, like an investor visa. And so that's about 200 grand that you need cash to do it, right? And not to get into the specifics of it, but you basically need money, invest in a business, show certain things, and you can get a visa in the US. So I kind of realized that was my only way to stay. I kind of put my back against the wall, and so my parents knew I was going for that. That was my second year. That was kind of my singular focus there. Is, hey, get the visa done, get the money you need, get it done type thing. So they saw that happen, and so it was kind of a legitimization of it all, I would say, in general. But I don't even feel like that really clicked until the 3rd year when I was doing solar. I actually started doing solar, and that was real money, I would say, like whatever you want to say. That was the first year I actually made a big amount.
What did you make your second summer?
250 maybe, something like that.
Yeah, it's not real money, right?
250 grand. I think it was. It was great money at the time. I was stoked. Right?
No, when you get into solar, it changes.
But solar was a whole other thing, and so that's almost like you can't ignore it, right? And so, but then that clicked, because then there was a couple of years in, everyone started kind of seeing it actually play out. Everything matched, and so at that point, it felt like it was proven, right? Mm-hmm. And so everyone else saw it, and then that's when you start having everybody reach out to you and ask you what you did and ask you how I did it. And that's kind of, you just kind of see that, hey, everything I've done starts to now make sense 2-3 years later, right? And so I would say that was between year 2 and year 3. That was about that time to me when it was like, okay, this made sense.
Right. Well, there you go. Okay, so now you're into solar. And how long have you done solar since, what was it, 2021?
It was early 2021. So we're going on 21, 22, 23, 24, 4 years. So almost going on 5. It's going to be the 5th year coming up. Okay,
awesome. And so now you've been in sales for what, 6-7 years?
Yeah, first year was 2019. So we're going on 2025. Is that 6 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang. So we've been in the industry just about the same. That makes me not feel great about myself. But so how would you say sales has affected your life, like in general, door to door specifically?
I say definitely changed my life, right? But not in the ways that you would think. Obviously, financially, been done really well, and materially and everything else. So as far as external success, obviously that's great. But I feel like everyone knows, for the most part, sales has all of those things. So, but I feel the kind of the personal growth I got out of it, and and obviously I was in college when I started, and I can look back 6 years later, and the craziness, like the the huge amount of different scenarios and experience I've gone, like great scenarios, horrible scenarios, everything in between is just kind of the spectrum of emotion and experience I was kind of exposed to over the 6 years. I just feel like fast-tracked personal growth, right? More than anything else. And so that's the biggest thing, right? I feel like it's, just give me kind of an avenue for growth. So I look at sales as kind of a way, sales and business, right? And leadership as you grow. It's really just a reflection of personal growth, or just kind of a vehicle for personal growth, right? And so the more you actually go through different things and different scenarios and different experiences, you're just going to come out better out of it. And so I'm at a place to where I would have never thought, if you asked me when I was in college, when my first year or my first month in sales, if you asked me like, where are you going to be 10 years from now, which we're not even 10 years in, we're 5 or 6 years in, I wouldn't have even conceived that I would be in this position, 5 years later.
Yeah.
But it's not the big thing I want to kind of drive across is it's not the financial thing. Like it's whatever. I mean, money's great and all that, but it's really just the growth, right? The person I am, having gone through the things I've gone through, is just a different human than the person I was when I started, right? And so that's the thing I'm the most thankful for, just looking back and kind of the experience and the character traits and all of those things that you develop along the way is the biggest thing.
What do you feel like, what character traits do you feel like you've developed? What do you think makes you so different now versus the 5-year-old or 5 years old ago Ricky?
It's a good question. Obviously, a lot of things. I'm 6 years older, a lot more experience
Life
overall.
Life is itself. Which
right?
Door to Door, I feel like. Did you ever watch anime?
I haven't.
Okay. Okay. So in Dragon Ball Z, there's this thing called the Hyperbolic Time Chamber.
Yes, I know where you're gonna go with that. I've never watched it, but
that's what I feel like Door to Door is. It's like 1 year of Door to Door is like, I don't even know, like 10 years, maybe even more of normal life experience. It's hard to put a time on it, but it just like compresses.
Yeah, and everything that comes with that, the stress, the challenges, especially once you get into the leadership side of things and growing a team and growing an organization, growing a company, all of those things, it really is, right? Like I look back, or I look even forward, I'm looking at people we're dealing with, 35, 40, 45, 50-year-olds on a daily basis as far as business goes. And you just feel like you have the same level of experience, at least, or kind of the same level of, I'm not going to say understanding, because there's obviously people that are much, much more ahead of us, but in general, it is just like so much experience compressed in such a short period of time. And it's not necessarily work experience or technical experience, is emotional experience, right? Like so many different situations you're put through, and it's just so many different social interactions.
When we're all mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Would you kind of agree?
Yes.
We're all mirrors of each other, and so the more, I mean, we talk to a lot of people during the day, which actually isn't even that many, but maybe 20, 30 people a day, maybe more, but roughly around that. And so you're kind of seeing a different reflection of yourself more and more and more. And I feel like that's where a lot of the growth comes from. It's just kind of, this person's so different, this person's so different, and you have to adapt yourself. And we're very flow, so I feel like we're just very natural. We do that naturally, but what you're doing is you're adapting to the individual that's in front of you, and you do that over and over and over and over and over again. It's really just uncovering different parts of yourself, right?
Yeah, I agree. 100%. It's just every different interaction you have with somebody that's different. They're not really different. You just discover you guys are similar. You're similar in different ways, right? And so it just kind of gives you a lot of different perspectives and so many different interactions, and whether that's customers, whether that's your reps, whether that's people you work with, there are just so many different perspectives that it just kind of almost enlarges or expands your consciousness in a way, if you want to go down to that, right? It just kind of gives you access to so many more point of views, right?
So what do you think makes you different? And I don't want to talk about it too much, but I mean, let's say, so you did your first year in solar. So you did Vivint 2 years.
1 year.
1 year.
1 summer.
Okay, months. 1 summer. And then
months.
When you did the 250, that was
EcoShield. Yeah.
And then how many accounts did you do?
6. I can't remember the exact amount. I think it was 650-ish.
650 accounts?
650 to 680 maybe. Okay,
ballpark. So you did 650 accounts, and then you got into solar.
Yes.
So how many did you do your first year in solar?
Yeah, so my first year, I started around May, so it wasn't a full year. I started around May, so that was for the summer, and I stopped around November, October, really. So it was basically a summer, 4 or 5 months, but I hit about 200 something, 250 or so, maybe.
That was your first year in
In
solar?
that range, my first 6 months, yeah.
How did you do that your first year? That didn't even make sense to me. But how did you do that your first year? Like, did you have? I don't even know where to go from. Like, so you had how many reps?
When I first started with a really good small team, I maybe started with 3, 4, right, 5 core group of reps that came with me, and kind of built from there. I was part of another team. There were other setters and everything else, but my core group was maybe 4 or 5 at the beginning.
So how do you feel like you got to 250 so quick in that summer?
A few things. So number one, I came from PAS, right? And I think the biggest thing is when I started in solar, not really knowing much about solar, and I came into the industry, everybody kind of had this lid, and it was really dictated not by the actual what was possible sales wise. It was dictated by the amount of income, right, and money in a way. And so coming from PAS, to us it was normal, or like at least being top producer in PAS, you're doing 40, 50, 60 deals a week. And that's good, but it's somewhat normal. And I came to solar, and everybody was like, oh, if you're doing 10 a month, you're a god, basically, right?
Right.
It's unheard of. You can't do 10 a month.
Right.
And then I just kind of fundamentally rejected that idea, where I felt like everyone else really just took that.
What made you reject that idea? Like, at what point were you like, nope, that doesn't make sense? Because it sounds, 250 is very quick for your first.
Yeah, I'm fundamentally like that as a person in general.
Okay.
If you tell me something, the first thing I'm going to do is question it and try to disagree with it if I can. And then not in a bad way, but I just try to have my own thought over it. I don't want to take someone else's thought over it. And so I just kind of thought about it in a logical way. And I did alarms before that, right? And so in alarms, you would do 10, 15 a week. That's good, but it's normal. Like, it happens all the time. And then you'll do 40, 15 a week. That's good, but it happens all the time. And then now we're in solar, and now you're like, oh, 10 a month. That's 2, 3 a week. And like, you're telling me I'm getting 50 people a week to sign up for this thing, 15, 20 people a week to sign up for this thing. Why do I only get 3 people to sign up for this thing? And wait a second. You're telling me I'm adding a bill here, and these people are paying more money, and now I can literally just go to somebody, save them money. Doesn't cost them anything. Literally just drop their bill, and I can only get 2 to 3 of these a week. Like, that just makes 0 sense to me, right? And so that was just my fundamental thought. I was like, if I can get 50 people to sign up for this, I can get 50 people to sign up for this. Same thing, right? At the end of the day, a sale is a sale. We can sell this little thing, and we can sell whatever. Is just a human interaction. And so I think if I can get somebody to buy something, it doesn't really matter. As long as it makes sense and it's a win-win situation. And solar is arguably the biggest win-win situation there is. So yeah, that just didn't make sense. I just feel like there's just a lot more deals to be had. And then I just saw people getting really comfortable in solar. And it's simply because of the time, especially. It's still crazy now, but when I started, it's 2021. Interest rates were 0, basically. Commissions were stupid. No interest on everything. And so people are just making so much money per deal. And so you would
Question real quick. What's the most you've made in one deal? If you don't mind me asking.
I can share. It was a really big deal. I want to say the biggest one deal commission was maybe 40,000.
Okay.
40, 45. It was a 30 kilowatt system. It's a big deal.
Huge deal. Yeah. Big deal.
Yeah, about 40.
That's huge.
I want to say something like that.
Okay.
But basically what I was getting at is I just saw so many people, and I had seen people from PAS go to solar, and from alarms go to solar, and from other industries go to solar. And these were people that were grinding and dropping a ton of deals. And when they got to solar, they just got comfortable. And it's simply because you can sell 5 deals and make a lot more money and make the same amount that they were just taking them like 10x more work in PAS or alarms. And so I just saw that right away. And I just knew everyone, basically the whole industry as a whole, just was capped not by the sales ability, but simply by the income. Like, you're just making too much. And so if your self-identity isn't matching that amount, you're always going to revert back to what your self-identity really is. And so there were so many people, and their identity was, hey, I'm making between this and this per month, or this and this per year. and all they were really doing is just mapping back to making that amount. And that really in solar was like, oh, they're working 2-3 days a week, going 2 days a week to the beach, and basically kick it, right? And so
what was your identity?
Well, my identity,
has it always been like this identity? Because you come into the industry and just do 250 your first summer. I mean, what about your identity do you think was different than? I don't know if I've ever even heard that in general for someone to do it. Their first summer is like why do you think you like? What about your identity do you think is so different or was so different?
I think at the time, and I think this is something that comes from soccer and sports. I just played high level sports my whole life until college, and then got into sales right away. So you'd say I've been in a very highly competitive, intense environment since I was 6, right? So that's basically all I've been a part of, and that's just part of who I am. But I wasn't really attached to the outcome, even though at that time when I started solar, I had done the all-time rookie record in past. I had a huge year in past, so I had a lot of external validation that kind of gave me that. It kind of validated myself as far as like I always had this inner thought of like I'm really gonna be good at this, and I'm gonna be the best at it or one of the best at it. But that year really just kind of validated the fact that like, okay, I actually am one of the best. You did it
before, then you did it again, and so it's you kind of built on that momentum.
And my fundamental belief, and that comes from soccer really, and two things. Number one, it's always tied to the inputs and the work, not tied to the outputs. And so that goes back to soccer, and I developed that my whole soccer career, my sporting career, and it relates to sales. And I try, at least as much as I can, to derive validation or satisfaction or fulfillment of whatever you want to call it from what I do, not what I get, right? It's not the result, it's what I do. And so if I'm in soccer, and especially when I was playing professional, and there's so much pressure, right? You have a lot of pressure. It's a lot of people looking at you. There's a lot of eyes on you. And if all I'm worried about is, did I play good? Did I play bad? Did I have a shitty game? Did I have a good game? It just wrecks you mentally. You can't quite keep that up and down. And so all you really have to get back to at the end of the day is I'm training twice a day. I'm training as hard as I possibly can. I'm leaving 0 on the table. I'm getting everything I can out of this. And that's all I can control. And I can show up to a game on Sunday, and I know that I've done everything I had to do. And I'm just going to try to focus on the game. And I've prepped as much as I possibly could to do it. And whatever happens, I play good, bad, win, lose. Ultimately, like I've just done what I could. And so I've always had that. And so when I translated it to sales, to me, it was just, there's other people doing this. These people are talented. They have experience. They know what they're doing, but they are people. They are human beings, right? They have a mouth, 2 eyes, a nose, two arms, whatever. They look like me. And so if they can do it, I can put in the same amount of work or more work. It's basically unreasonable for me not to achieve the same thing. And that's always how I've looked at it at the beginning. And so even when I was brand new, I always had that thing where I'm like, this guy's doing it. I can work just as hard as he can or more. And there's no reason I couldn't do that. And so from that's kind of what drove me to have that big year, and kind of had the external validation of it as well, to where I'm like, well,
sure,
now I am that, right? And that just kind of cemented that in.
So you did 250. Do you know about how many of those were self-gen? Were you mainly self-genning at first, or did you just hit the ground running with set or closer? Or?
I only really self-gen my first about month because I really wanted to get the hang of it.
How long did you set for, or did you set?
I came straight into self-gen. I set for like a week at the time, and I set for my boss at the time, and set a couple deals just to get the hang of it.
Just to watch. And
I was coming off of like a huge past year. I had just sold 700, 680 accounts, whatever that is, 650. So I mean, I had already a lot of accounts under my belt.
You just had that momentum, so you're just like, yeah, that's how I was.
I got it, right?
I came from past, did 650, and then I just went straight into self-genning, and then it was just like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
And so but I self-gen my first month. I had a big self-genning month, and that kind of validated the same thing.
How many did you do?
40 plus.
Your first month?
Yeah.
You did 40 self-gen your first month.
Something like that. I mean, somewhere around there. I can't remember, honestly.
Nice.
But about that, it was a big month, because that's really what kind of gave me the
that makes
push,
sense.
right? To start is that. Like, I came into solar,
crazy.
everyone's like, oh, if you do 10, you're God or whatever.
Yeah.
You're crazy. Unheard of if you can do 10 a month consistently. And me being stubborn, I just questioned that. I'm like, there's no way. And everyone was literally like, dude, you literally cannot do more than 10 or 12 a month. That's everybody accepted widely through the industry, right? And to me, I was like, no, you guys are nuts. I'm literally going to go psychotic for a month. I'm going to show you right now. I'm literally going to go psycho mode.
What market?
Here, California. Yeah, I was in San Diego. San Diego. And I
was it pretty beat back then?
It was saturated.
It was
very
and
saturated.
you did 40.
San Diego was the mecca of solar
How
at
is
the
that
time.
even possible? Like, so walk me through how, I guess, what was your schedule working? Like, what time did you wake up?
Back then, that's hard. It's like my schedule 5 years ago. What did that look like? I woke up 7:30. I always wake up around that. 7:30ish, I want to say. Work schedule, it was more lax than pest control, but just keep in mind I came from pest, and my schedule in pest was I head out to air around 9:30. I'm there at 10. I start knocking at 10. I don't stop, 0 breaks until 8:30, right, straight. And so coming to solar, everyone was working like 3 hours a day. It was kind of felt like a joke. And so I simply just said, I'm going to apply, not the same schedule that I was running before, because I was like on the brinks of collapse at the time. I was completely burnt. But I simply just said, like, if I can just do something similar to what I was already doing and not keep into account the fact that this is solar and there's more money involved than everything else, just do what you already do, nothing different. That's what I did. I was probably knocking 12 to like 1 o'clock-ish, 12 to 7, 12 to 8. So 7-8 hours straight. And that was that.
I don't even. Okay, so you did 40 your first month, and then
Somewhere on there.
And then you had setters.
Yeah.
And then did you just train them? You just trained them really well, and
Yes.
then they started setting, and then you started closing, and then it just naturally
snowball from
That's
there.
insane. I don't even know how to. So, anyways, so that's not enough. So then the next year, what did you do?
The next year was a full year, and so that was my record-breaking year. Technically, at the time, I sold 575. Were sold. The official install number is 418. I think it's actually more. We only reported what was installed as of December 31st for Golden Door awards and stuff. But then there's a chunk of jobs that actually got installed January, February, or whatever. So
yeah, it's solar.
Out of those, probably 450 of them installed, but the official install number was 418, and then the official sold number was 575.
And those are mainly setter closer.
Yeah, I always had setter closer, other than literally the first month. There's always like self gens in there because you always go out, knock, train, all that. But the bulk of it was always setter closer.
Do you remember your schedule that year?
Yeah, same thing, right?
12,
I mean,
12
no, well, once you go to setter closer, my schedule was really just dictated around all the appointments, right? And so really your schedule is whenever your first appointment is, you go out, and whenever your last appointment is, you're out there, and in between you're out there, right? And so that was kind of dictating how early I was going out. But we ran correlation meeting every day, 10 a.m. So I was there. I was running meetings every day, 10 a.m. All of our guys were there. So I would just run meeting 10 to 11, and then everyone was straight out. And same, then you'd have appointments. I would just go out right after that.
Did you have any closers at that point, or was it all setters?
There were a few closers we already had on that team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the next year you did, so what was it,
575 was sold.
And then the second year you sold how many?
My first year is 250. Second, 575.
Third year.
Yeah.
Third year,
that was last year. It was right about, can't remember it exactly. Last year was tumultuous year, so I don't even think we have exact numbers, but it was around 350 to 400. I want to say.
Was that net or sold?
That was sold, probably in the fours, and then it installed around 3. But last year it was an interesting year we can touch on, but I really only sold for like 4 or 5 months, and then the rest of it was really spent developing Momentous and the team. There were a lot of other things, so that was very intense. And there was the NEM2 push in California, so like January through April, it was hardcore, and then I really didn't sell after that for 6 or 7 months, and then I sold like for another month and a half at the end of the year.
So you really only sold 5 months or so? 6 months?
I sold February.
Okay.
We didn't really sell in January either. So February, March, April, that was an M2 push. After that, I didn't really sell for a couple months. I had a challenge in the summer that we actually did. I took 45 days. It was like what was the challenge? To do 90 in 60 days. I did like 100 and something in 45 days, and then we stopped. But so I did that. I did 2.5, 3 months of NEM2. I did a challenge in 45 days in the middle of the summer. Didn't really sell after that until November. And then I did a blitz in November for 2 weeks. That was it. So 3.5 or 5 months. Call it 5 to 6 months. Something like that.
And then this year, what are you at?
This year, I'm at Damn, I'm not updated on the checking sheet.
That's how you know you're successful. You just grind.
Let's
and
see. I'll tell you live right now.
That's
we are
crazy.
at 520 right now. That is
520
the
November.
last deal sold was number 520 on the sheet.
Oh, so you have your whole spreadsheet.
Right here.
So you are a systems guy, kinda.
Well, I mean, you got to track your accounts for
Right.
sure. You got to have that.
Damn.
So 520. This is this year. Yeah. That's
Okay.
what it is.
Okay. Dude, you just scrolling. That's crazy. Wow.
So that's what that is. And we got a blitz to go. At least another couple of weeks to grind for the year. So there'll be some more to that.
Okay. So what? Yeah, that's just mind blowing to me. So I guess you touched on it a little bit, but I guess what have you learned in doing that many accounts? Like what are the main lessons that you've taken away from that?
This can go as deep as you want, really. But
Just go all the way, dude.
I mean, I think it really depends. I mean, obviously, sales wise, did I learn a lot? Yes, I've learned a ton about communication. I've had, at this point, I can't even pinpoint, probably tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of interactions with
What
people.
have you learned about? Well, let me actually go this. So I'll ask you two questions. What have you learned about people?
Okay. Well,
Three questions.
All right. Let's
What
go.
have you learned about people? Let's start there.
Okay, what have I learned about people? It's very interesting. People, the crazy thing is the more interactions you have, the more you really realize that we're all kind of the same for the most part. Like everything's kind of the same. It's the same but different, which means inherently you get to know a ton of people. Some of them on a deeper level, less deep level, but in general, I think I've learned people are good as a whole, which is great, right? You just meet so many cool people. And you would never really think or kind of strike an interaction. And so like appearance isn't really what actually is out there. That's probably the biggest thing is you start, and you know, there's in sales, you see somebody and you start kind of labeling them off of the type of person that you think they are. Judge them subconsciously. Like you see them dressing a certain way or like they have a certain type of car or whatever. And you kind of stereotype them, right, in a way. Which
you have to.
You kind of have to in a way, but then you just kind of realize you have so many interactions like, oh, wow, I thought this guy was this way, but it's the opposite.
Right.
And the other way around. I thought this guy was this way, and he's the complete opposite. And so really on a deeper level, I think you just understand that everyone has their own way to kind of express themselves. And once you really get to peel back and if you understand sales, you understand psychology, you get to have deeper conversations or deeper interactions that really kind of uncover people in a way. And so you really just get to see the true colors of somebody coming out. And I think that's kind of the surprise is you just really, people are much different on the inside that you think of what they would look like on the outside in the good and bad ways, both. So it really, nothing is how it seems, or at least rarely somebody is exactly how you see them. So that's a good lesson. I feel like that's kind of cliche. Everyone knows that, but really tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of interactions by now that I've had. And you always uncover something very interesting or something that you wouldn't expect when you actually go deep enough, which is great. So it just kind of teaches you that. But then, like I said, like everyone is kind of the same, meaning at the end of it all, like bottom line, we all kind of want the same thing, right? Like you can go about it 100 different ways. You can believe one thing, you can believe another thing. You can have all sorts of different opinions of whatever. At the end of the day, like people are all the same as far as intention goes, which means, everyone's at their core just literally wanting to feel loved, right? Take care of the people they care about, have their needs met. That's really it. And then the way that they express that is their own way of like whatever their experience really is, right? And they've gone through different experiences that kind of got them to be who they are. But like at their core, everything people do is not good nor bad. It just goes towards trying to fulfill whatever needs they have, which are emotional or physical or whatever that is. And so I think it just really makes you more compassionate in a way, or just objective in just not judging people. Or like, oh, this person said something that sounds really mean. They look mean. But like on a deeper level, like what do they really want? And like what is it that wasn't meant for them? Or what did they think or what did they perceive that made them feel a certain way? And if you uncover that, then at the end of the day, you'll find like they're a good person, right? So I think that's a big one in general.
Dang, yeah, that's huge. What do you think? I feel like that's probably what makes you so good at what you do at sales, right? Because ultimately sales is just connection. It's connecting with other people and ourselves too, but you know, you can only connect with somebody else the level that you can connect with yourself. So
Exactly.
what do you think makes you like, how do you feel like you're able to connect? Or I would you say that that's the reason you're able to sell so much volume? Because at a certain point, you only have, I mean, I can't tell you how many of the sales reps that are watching this probably knock from 12 to, you know,
For
work
sure.
the same
Yeah,
hours.
100%.
They probably are going to have the same morning sauna routine. They're going to, you know, they're going to try all these different things. But what do you think makes you, I mean, be able to do over 500? It kind of like, I'd love to learn myself, but what do you think is the delta? At a certain point, I mean, there's only so many variables that you can, you know, change.
100%. I mean, there's not one thing, right? There's a lot of different
Sure.
things. To start off, I mean, all of my numbers are also a reflection of our team's numbers because it's all setter closer, and I couldn't close whatever many deals I close, and all of our other closers close without the setters actually producing those accounts. So it's not just me. I feel like it's a team effort in general of making that happen. So it's not just a reflection of what I do. It's just like what does everyone else on the team does differently to be able to generate that many leads, that many deals, all of that. So it's more of a collective thing. I would say over than just me doing it on my own. I couldn't do that by myself, self-genning 550 deals or whatever. But that's a side note. So other than that, meaning have a great team, have a lot of leads, have everything systematized.
So let's break it down. So I think you're kind of definitely on to something, and I want to get into that. But let's just say I have X amount of leads. I mean, first of all, I think the hardest part is definitely the lead flow.
For
So
sure.
I guess how have you been able to get that much lead flow? Because I mean, I can't tell you how many guys have also watched this and they have 4 or 5 setters, or they might have 10 setters and they're not doing 200 accounts, let alone almost 600.
Yeah.
So how are you able to generate that many leads? How are you able to get other guys, especially even new guys, to generate that many leads? How is that? How do you do that?
Okay, so there's basic answer to this, which is like, hey, training, culture,
Right.
getting all of that stuff dialed. We all know that answer.
Right.
I think fundamentally the real answer is, and it goes a little deeper than that, is it comes from number one, who you are, your identity, who you are as a person, but also who you are, your presence kind of carries a certain vibe to it. And that translates to customers, it translates to setters, it translates to your team. And so essentially having that translates into your team and picking up that mentality, the self-belief, obviously all of those things that you can't just teach, right? You can teach, I can train you on how to pitch, I can tell you my exact script. I've showed my closing process to thousands of people on stage. It doesn't mean you're going to close the same because that's a script, right? That's a standard procedure. You can replicate that 1,000 times, but it's the way in which you do it, which means the energy behind it, the intention behind it, the connection behind it is what makes it work, right? And so that translates to the customer. It translates to your team that picks up your self-belief. Your team sees what you're doing, and that conviction carries through the culture. So it's much more subtle than, hey, you can just do this and work this many hours and say these things and do that and do this and you'll have it. It's not as simple as that. There's a system for it. You can follow it. There's a blueprint, but it's a little deeper than just, hey, just go do a couple things. It's just who you are at the end of the day.
What makes you different?
I don't know. Somebody else would have to answer that, right?
What makes
I
your
don't know.
energy different?
I'm just being me, 100% the whole time. That's all. Somebody else would have to say that. That's not me, right? I'm just being myself.
Right.
I just feel like I just feel like I'm just me all the time. And the one thing I do see in the industry a lot of the times is people put on this facade, right, or this mask of who they feel like they have to be or who they have to feel like they have to show themselves as. Like especially leaders tend to do this. A lot of guys that are in leadership positions, they put on this front, right, or armor of like, oh, I feel like I have to talk to my guys a certain way. I have to appear a certain way. I have to put up this image. I have to say a certain things or believe in certain things, all these things. And it just kind of, I feel like, takes away from a little bit of authenticity to it. And I feel like one thing I would probably say not me, but I would say my guys probably would say this the most is, I'm just me. I'll speak my mind 100% of the times, and you'll never kind of guess where I stand on something. Like, you just know what it is. It's not political. I'll just cut it straight to you. You know what it is, and it's just raw, and it's who I am, and I just don't filter that at all. And so the people that align with it and that vibe with it and that kind of share the same belief, or at least align with it, they are attracted to that, and it works, and they're in that right energy. And the people that don't just don't, right, and see themselves out. But I'm not trying to appeal to people that are not vibing with that.
And I think I want to pick apart two things here. It's taken me, it's crazy because a lot of the things you're talking about that have made you so successful, I've really realized almost all of these things in like 1 year after 6-7 years of me doing door to door. And I think that a true leader is somebody who's going to shoot you straight, is going to tell you how it is. And it's gonna, and they're not afraid of how you're gonna feel, right? They're not afraid of, I mean, you're probably, a good leader is gonna say some things that ruffle feathers, but will make change, right? A real leader makes change. And there's definitely, sometimes there's tactful ways to do it, but a lot of times you just gotta be harsh and direct. Maybe not harsh, but they kind of coincide. And so I think it's just not operating out of fear, right? Not operating out of a low vibration, and just pure abundance. And that's really where it just, I'm boiling it down even just right now, and I've boiled it down over the last week that we've been together, is you just have a very abundant mindset.
You've actually explained it better than I could have, so thanks for that. But yeah, I would say it really comes down to that in everything, especially in actual sales as well. It's really just abundance.
Your belief is very abundant.
Yes.
So you've always thought, I can do better. I see you do this. Well, I can do this. And you're just always, and it's interesting because it seems like you've always thought that way. But that is your authentic nature, and authenticity is the highest rate of vibration. And essentially what's happening, and I'm an energy guy. Everybody who watches this podcast, everybody who watched the first podcast, which was Wes Watson, who is the energy dude. He's crazy energy, but he's energy. You're the same way. And it's you just vibrate at such a high rate of vibration, and your energy is just so pure and authentic. And it baffled me the first time I met you, but how do you think that you're able to be so authentic, number one, and then how are you able to, where do you think the abundance mindset that you get, where do you think that comes from?
Well, that's a tough one to answer. I mean, authenticity, I just feel like that's just who you are. It's hard to get it from somewhere, right? It's just who you are. I feel like it just takes, I guess, courage or abundance to actually just be who you are, right? And so the two kind of go in hand, I feel like, and it's the only way you wouldn't really be authentic to yourself is if you're in a scarcity mindset of something, right? And because if you're abundant and you're not worried about things.
Are you ever scared?
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
I've never, okay.
Yes. Yes and no, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but yes. I mean, I've definitely had.
So you've had low moments.
100%. I mean, and that's the thing is, I don't want to come across with the wrong impression of, I don't care about anything and I'm not scared and I'm not stressed. And that happens all the time. But I'm able to kind of pull myself back and look at the big picture, I would say, because I'm stressed all the time. I have doubts a lot of times. I'm unsure about things all the time. It just really takes kind of seeing the big picture of things, and when you really look at the big picture and you're like, at the end of the day, just bring it back to first principles, right? Fundamental things. I'm like, I'm gonna be okay regardless. Like, is this thing gonna work out? Maybe. Am I gonna make some money, lose some money, whatever? In the grand scheme of things, those are all irrelevant things, superfluous things, right? And so I think once you, and maybe that answers the question, we're just kind of going off topic, but I feel like once you get to a point, and it doesn't come overnight. It took me a long time to figure this out, and a lot of trials and tribulations and ups and downs. But I feel like I'm at a point now to where I realize I'm going to be good regardless of what happens forever, right? I'll be good. And that's not because of money or whatever. It's just because of who I am, right? And so because of who I became in the process of all of this, I'll always be fine. And so there's not really one thing that can happen other than health related, or something related to my family or so. There's not one thing that can go terribly wrong to where I couldn't come back from. And so once you realize that, does everything else like really matter? Sure. In the moment you care. Like I'm scared. I'm worried about something happening. I want something to happen. I'm pushing an outcome. I want the thing to happen. Great. I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
So what makes you different? Because, I mean, how are you able to be authentic? How are you able to keep that? I guess, do you feel like you've ever lost or never been authentic? Do you feel like you've always been authentic?
For the most part, yes, but I've definitely had moments where I feel like I lost my authenticity.
What in those moments? I want you to think about the moment you felt most inauthentic, least authentic. In those moments, and it could be a period, it could be a day, but it's probably going to be a week, month, maybe a 6-month period.
Yeah.
What were the things that you remember doing, or what do you think made you feel that way? Took that authenticity away? Because I think deep down, as children, we're all authentic beings, and we all come from a divine creator. We all I think we're operating out of spirit as a young child. And then the world creates an adult and creates all these labels and belief systems. And it seems as if, for me, realizing for you that ultimately success is deductive. And what you've been really good at is not adding layers. You've been really good at blocking the layers.
Yes.
All these doubts, all these beliefs of what's possible, you've been able to just, nope, that's not me. Nope, that's not me. Nope, that's not me. But I want you to touch on points in which you did accept those negative beliefs. You did accept those lower vibrations. You accepted and identified in those lower states of vibration. Do you remember like what you were doing or what made that happen?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I ever had like a negative. I wouldn't say I've ever picked up like negative vibrations or whatever in that way in which you say, but I think every time you're not authentic, it simply just means, to me at least, you're just losing sight of who you are and kind of what makes you happy and what you want to do. And you're starting to adapt what you want to do or what your beliefs are or what your goals are to what you think somebody else thinks. All right. And so if I'm adapting my beliefs or I'm adapting my goals or I'm adapting my behaviors or my aspirations to something that does not come from me internally, but comes from somebody else, whoever that might be, society, company, boss, girlfriend, friends, whatever that is, that just takes away from who you are authentically, right? And so really every time you kind of accept a paradigm or a goal or something that didn't come from you internally, but just came from something else, whatever that may be, that naturally kind of affects. You can't be authentic chasing something that didn't authentically come from you internally, right? And so, I mean, for me specifically, I would say the times that I felt the most authentic to myself, the most not authentic to myself, were the times where I was chasing something that just didn't inherently come from me, right? And that usually was chasing money or chasing material possessions or numbers or goals of sales that were kind of pushed onto me, or I was told that I should want, right? Or, I mean, obviously society tells you should want a lot of money and all that fun stuff, and companies are really good, especially early on in my career when I was very new to this thing. That's probably one of the things I regret the most. Not regret, but one of the things I realized looking backwards is I was really absorbed the first year or two of my career, just really behind, like, companies are really good at this. They give you a whole vision and whatever, and they just tell you what you should want. And they tell you this is what you should want to do, and this is what your progression should be like, and this is what your day should be like, and all of these things. And then those were the times when I was just kind of taking that and absorbing that belief and just kind of running it and chasing it. And I just felt the most inauthentic to myself. But at the moment, I couldn't pinpoint that. I could tell you that looking backwards now, but in that moment in time, I just couldn't decipher that in a way. And I was just blindly chasing something that I didn't want in the first place, right?
Well, whatever you chase runs, so.
Well, not even that. I achieved those things. It doesn't
Right.
mean that you didn't achieve them. It just means that it's not what you wanted. And so if I tell you that you want something and that didn't come from you, and I just tell you you want it and you accept that, and you spend the next year chasing the one thing I told you that you want, and you get it, and what happens when you get it? You just realize, why did I want it?
So do you have goals?
Yes and no. It's a tricky one. Yes and no. Yes. I mean, I think everyone should have goals, right? And everyone should have targets with whatever, whether it's health, fitness, business, relationships, everything. So that's important in a way because it gives you direction, right? It gives you direction in as far as where do you want to go and like where are you pulling towards. But aside from that, I know whatever the goal is and whatever we're talking about, any goal really is just a direction, right? And the purpose of the goal is not for you to achieve the goal. The purpose of the goal is to give you direction for you to go a certain way and develop yourself towards that way.
And become
The person that was able to achieve the goal. Does not mean that the goal is going to do anything for you, right? When you achieve the goal, what are you going to do? Nothing. We're going to do the same thing. But you are the person that could achieve that goal, and that up levels your identity in whatever that is, and then you're going to have new goals. And really, goals are just, to me at least, a way to stretch yourself and a way to develop. So if you have no goals, you're not going to develop because you're going to stay where you are and you're stagnant. So you need goals, but you also need to understand. And I think it's really, I mean, it's easy to say this, I can preach all day long, but like really the only way you really learn it is you chase after goals and you get them and you realize they're empty. There's nothing there. But the person I became achieving that goal, that is something, right? That's what I'm proud of. Like we said, is what ultimately gives me that level of authenticity. I feel like I get more authentic every year that goes by, right? And it's simply because I'm in a position to where I realize now that I'm good, right? And so you're free. You're not acting out of scarcity because at a fundamental level, I don't care what anybody thinks because I'm good. And I know that they could lose everything, take everything away from me, whatever, but you just operate from that place of freedom. I could do this again. I could get it back. I might not. I might want to do something else, but I know I can do whatever I want to do. And so that lets you be authentic to where I can speak my mind. I can say what I think at all times. And I just kind of operate in the way I want to feel. And it gives you the freedom to say no to the things that you want to say no to, where a lot of the times if you're in scarcity, you feel like you have to say yes just because you have to. And you just are just not really able to block a lot of those things out that we talked about. But that's a broad thing.
I'll kind of shift gears just slightly, but how often do you feel like if you were to take the day and 24 hours is 100%,
Mm-hmm.
and let's just say, flow state, right? So flow state is is a point in which you're fully present and time passes by and you don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not concerned about your bills. You're not concerned about all these problems. You're not in your head. You're in your heart. You're just flowing through your day. At how much on a percentage basis would you say throughout the day you operate in flow state?
I'd say that varies. There's not a percentage every day.
On average.
Most of it now. It was never that way.
Most of your day.
Most of my day. I would say now it's probably 80% of my day. And it wasn't that way,
Okay,
right?
so
But it is.
How do you tap into flow state? How did you go from not to now you're at 80%? How do you have like processes? Do you have things that work or don't work? Or how do you get into that flow state?
I would say two things. Routines help in a way. Like you want to have predictable routines, morning, night, usually general kind of, you want to know for the most part what your day will look like because you just kind of have general freedom in your mind. When you're free, then hey, I'm going to handle the things I need to handle. And then it just kind of frees up your mind to where you're actually free to go wherever because you're not tied to a problem or something you have. So trying to be as clear with your day as you can, but also it's all of us hit flow state in different things, right? We're not going to hit flow state on everything we do. There's maybe 2 or 3 things that I can very easily hit flow state on and 100 other things that I just can't. And I could try so hard and it's just not me.
What are those 2 or 3 things for you?
Talking, That's what we're doing right now. I'm in flow state. I'm vibing. Just having conversation, talking to people. That's what I
Connecting.
happen to do for a living, right? Connecting with people. It really is. I'm in flow state every time I'm interacting with somebody, whether that's a customer, whether that's one of our guys, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm training, I'm growing, I'm talking. I'm in flow state when I'm expressing myself, I guess, through whatever it is. But I'm connecting and I'm talking. I'm in flow state. We could do this for 12 hours. Oh, it's midnight 30 right now, right? Like it's literally midnight. And we didn't realize we're just going. And so this to me does not feel like work whatsoever. The
Right.
same way to where running trainings does not feel like work. Like I will go out there every day at a meeting and run a training for an hour. That is not work to me. It is work, but it's not. I love it. I enjoy it. I'm having a blast while doing it. The meeting will go by in 30 seconds and it's done, right? My guys half the time have to cut me off. They're like, we're going long, right? So I enjoy it. And so I guess the bottom line of it is it's a lot easier to hit flow state when you're doing things you actually love doing. You cannot get me to hit flow state on a spreadsheet. You just can't, right? Like I could sit here on a
That's
spreadsheet
me
on
too,
my
dude.
computer
I can't do it.
for 10 hours and I can do it. I'll just never be in flow state while doing it. I will hate it the whole way through. I will do it if I have to, but I'm never going to hit it. And so knowing what you can, like if you're authentic to yourself and you know those are the things that I love doing and those are the things that I'm the best at, and that's where I hit flow state. It's never on a spreadsheet. It's never doing something else. It's doing those things. And you recognize those patterns. And once you recognize those patterns, then it's like, I'm going to fill my day with that. And that is my whole day. Like my whole day is those activities.
And then you love your life.
And I love it. Yeah, that's why it does not feel like work.
And then you're authentic. And then it builds and
Yeah.
it builds and it just creates this magical thing over
Yeah.
time, and you're not attached to the outcome. You have no expectations. You might have a North Star, which is your goal, but you're not necessarily even pursuing, you're just creating.
Yeah. You're essentially operating at creation. And that's ultimately abundance, right? I'm enjoying this and I love this. It's not because I don't love it because I'm going to get this one thing, or I don't love it because of what we're going to get at the end. I love it because we're doing it, right? And so there's no end in mind in a way, and I'm just creating as we go. And then whatever's getting created turns out to produce outcomes in the world, right? But that's the secondary focus, I would say. And so when you're in that place, you're in flow state. When you are operating from a place of I'm just doing this so I can get this, you cannot hit flow state. You just can't. And so if that's it, I guess I'll go back to the spreadsheet example because it's very easy. I'd never want to do spreadsheets. You'll never catch me once wanting to do one. And so the only reason why I would ever do it, which I do them because I have to, but the only reason why I do is because I have to. And so I need to do this spreadsheet so that this can be organized so that we can know X, Y, Z things. And so I'm only doing that with the end in mind of I need to do it because I need the outcome of it. You'll never catch me enjoying it. And that's not flow state. And I'm not enjoying it, and I'm not authentic while I'm doing it. Whereas the things that I enjoy doing, that I also happen to be the best at, are the things that I'm just doing for the sake of doing. And I'm not waiting on the result. Sure, the result comes, right? But it's not the reason why I'm doing it in the first place. And that is really what compounds. And I think that plays into, what you said at the beginning is like, how do you hit these numbers? Like, I mean, it's a hard question to answer in a realistic way. Like, I could tell you exactly what I did. And like you said, there's 1,000 other people that will do it. But do they enjoy it as much as I do? Are they present as much as I do? All of those things, right?
I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's it. I think that is what I've boiled all of success down in my life. And that's, I think, deep down at the core of who I am, I've always understood that presence is all we really have. And that anything that takes us away from presence just lowers our energy. And that's something that really just caught me off guard with you. And it's just, that's, I think, what aligns so well between you and I, is that you found your success through presence. And I see all these reps in the industry that get so caught up in a whole bunch of different things, and it takes their presence away. Mm-hmm. And so they just don't. I mean, would you say that you could be present if you don't love yourself?
Damn, I don't know. Can you be present if you don't love yourself? Probably. I don't think you need to love yourself.
Well, I think you'd have a lot more doubts, right?
Yes, I would say so. I
And
mean,
fears. And
yes.
you'd identify as that.
Probably. It's a hard one to answer. You probably can. It's probably harder. You need to love what you're doing, not necessarily love yourself, right? But if you can do both, that'd be awesome, right? But in general, I feel like there's probably a lot of people that love something, and they find their escape, quote unquote, into something, right? And they love the thing. They might not necessarily love themselves, but they get present in that moment. So I'm sure that's the case. I don't know if I could answer.
Sure. Do you feel like you are using business as an escape?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm using business as a vehicle to develop myself, personal progression. And ultimately, yeah, to me, it's a game, right? It really is. And it's not the most important game, but it's a game. It just is a game. It's not important in the grand scheme of things. It's really not, right? Even though we feel like it is day to day, it's important. I care about what happens right now, this very second. When I'm in the business, I care about the outcomes, but really it doesn't matter, right? And so in the grand scheme of things, there's much more important things. And I think when you recognize that, and again, I think like you have to go through it to recognize that. And so the more you actually achieve things, it almost awakens you faster because you actually understand it. But the bottom line of it is, given that it's a game, and you see it as a game, right, then it really just kind of puts a lighter vibe to it all, to where you can actually enjoy it and do it.
Can you touch on the power of, and I guess, the power of intention and what that word means to you? Because, I mean, I watched you, the other day, you walk into a meeting, you instantly picked up on everybody's energy. And it was really cool to watch because I've ran a lot of sales meetings myself. I've watched a lot of sales meetings, and I don't know if I've ever seen somebody come in and change the dynamic of so many people all at once so quickly without anybody noticing it. And I think I was probably one of the only people that actually picked up on what you did. But you came in and you basically gave a speech or whatever you want to call it, and you basically you took everybody's energy from here to here. And, some probably were not, they are holding on to something, but you brought them up and you were like, yeah, let's go do 12 today. And you literally, I have proof. You texted me at the end of the day. You're like, I said we'd hit 12. We hit 12. That's the power of intention. So what is intention? We
did 13 that day.
Well, we got one after. You got one after. You texted me that, which was at like 9 or 10 or something. But what does intention mean? And kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, that's huge. That was actually really cool. I'm glad you got to see that because that was a cool shift. I liked that whole day. It was actually really cool.
And I think the whole thing that I'm realizing, because I'm really good at breaking things down, breaking people down, is that it really is just energy. Your energy is different. But so touch on intention.
Well, yeah, you'd say that. You'd have to say that about me. I can't feel my own energy. I guess I'm just me, right?
Well, it is, and I think you're just very in tune with yourself and your own energy and your authenticity, and you can see the lack of authenticity in other people.
Yeah.
And when you see that, you feel it, and when you feel it, you recognize that they're not being authentic, and that's the truest leader of all. A true leader will just see someone not being their authentic self, and he will guide them to being their highest self, being their authentic self. But
intention, before we get off a tangent here, intention. I mean, intention is so important, like very, very important to me. I feel like I've always been extremely intentional with everything I've ever done, and that's probably why I've been able to achieve so many material or milestones or goals or whatever. It's because I'm always intentional about what I do, and I don't know if that's I've gotten more aware of it over time. I can definitely see now, the more aware I am, I'm more intentional about it. But I've always kind of had it. I've always did things with a purpose. And so I think there's a huge difference between just doing things because you're doing things and doing things with the intention of getting something out of it. And so at the end of the day, really we can go very deep here, but the world in general is very noisy. Everything's noisy. Like, we're distracted every 25 seconds. This thing rings every 10 seconds. There are so many things that will just pull you away from what you're doing. You have to be hyper intentional about what you're trying to do, whatever that is, and be able to keep that intention top of mind through all the distractions is what's going to keep you constantly checking yourself and going back to what you're actually doing and ultimately making it happen and seeing it through. If you don't have that intention and you don't start with a clear intention on whatever you're trying to do, there's no direction, right? And so you were in that meeting, the one analogy I gave everybody, which is a very simple one, right? Let's say I'm here, you're there. You tell me, hey, come walk towards me, clap my hand, whatever that is. I'm going to start walking. Someone throws something in between, throw a rock, throw a chair, something. I know I got to come to you. What do I do? Oh, chair's on the way, rock's on the way. Cool. Walk around it, come to you, clap your hand. We're good. Right, done. Take the other example. You don't say anything. It's like, hey, move. I'm walking towards you. Rock drops in my way. Chair drops in my way. What am I going to do? I don't know. I got a million things I could do. Now I'm here. I can go that way. I could go that way. I could go backwards. I can move around. I can spin. I can sit here. I can just look at the thing, not understand what happened. So the same thing actually happened, which is a rock was dropped in front of me or a chair was dropped in front of me, whatever. The difference is the intention of, I had an intention. I just had to walk to you and clap your hand. That's all I had to do. Very simple. Walk around it, done. And so the other example feels so much more complicated. I'm like, I don't even know what happened. And I'm just sitting here wondering, and you're just stuck, right? And so
they don't care.
The long story short is you just can't really get anything done. You can't get your goal, purpose, whatever it is, across without intention, because there's going to be everything in the world is going to derail you. Like anything can happen. And if you don't have intention, you're just going to default to just the base state of being, right? And you're just kind of, and I feel like that's what 95, whatever amount of percent of people really, they just live their life, but they don't know why they're here. They don't know what they're wanting to do with their life. They don't know what the purpose for their life is. They don't know what their goals are. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out, because I don't, but I have a general sense of direction at all times with the way I'm pushing myself, as opposed to, oh, I'm just here. And this happened, and this happened, and this happened.
Where do you think you get your drive? Where do you think you get this this strong intention, this direction? Where do you think you get that?
It's a good one. I don't fully know, right? I don't fully know. I would say ever since I can remember, I've just had it for the most part. And I don't know quite exactly what that is. I just always had a feeling that I wanted to do something cool, something important, and then that something kind of translated and changed over time, and it still changes, and I'm sure in 2 years I'm going to want to be doing something different to what I currently want to do, or whatever. It's a moving target, but I always had this sense of urgency in a way, as far as
but for what? What's the difference? Because it doesn't seem like you have like I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I'm doing this. So where do you get the intention? Where do you get that?
The drive, I want to say on a higher level, and I'm not talking about a material goal. Like, there's not a one thing that I say, oh, I want to achieve this material thing in my life. That's not what it is. I feel like it's a push for improvement and development. That's really what it is. One of the biggest things I talk about, or I think about all the time, is potential. And so if you see potential, and everyone has potential, everyone has a lot of potential. Many people have way more potential than they even recognize. And so my biggest fear in a way, or my biggest, probably fear or so, is to have untapped potential, or to just not really be able to uncover not what I could have done, but who I could be, right? And so if we understand that by you going through a lot of different things, you kind of up-level yourself and you grow and develop as a person, then the ultimate version of yourself, right, the most developed version of you ever that you could possibly be, like the ultimate
10.0,
right? Like, if I were to say the absolute best possible version of Ricardo, right, the possible thing I could be in all aspects of my life, that person has to go through so many things that I can't even conceive right now, right? For me to become that ultimate person.
An eye for an eye.
And so the ultimate way you become that is you just go through a bunch of things, right? Like the reason why I am so much more developed now than I was 6 years ago is because I went through so much stuff and I just learned so many things, and I had horrible moments, great moments, everything in between. And I'm just so much more aware of who I am, right? And then 7, 8, 10 years down the line, I'm going to be much more aware of who I am than today. It's just because I'm going to have gone through so many more experiences and so many more things. And so you can't really get that if you're just stagnant. And so I think the ultimate drive is, and again, it didn't start this way, right? I think it's a process that you get to. Like you start, I mean, the first reason why I wanted to sell is I want money, right? I just want to make a bunch of money. That's the first basic level of, that's my drive. I want money. And then you make money and you're like, oh shit, that's not that cool, right? And so you keep going and keep going and keep going. And you recognize, and then you kind of, that's ultimately kind of what I landed on, is it's a moving target, but you have to push yourself to become who you're ultimately meant to be or supposed to be or what you can be. And that's the reward.
So it seems like, and it's just so crazy, the parallels in my own journey. I've arrived at the same point myself, and it's just, we keep looking for this thing outside of ourselves, and so that pushes us to go achieve that thing. But the person that we created is what we realize is the real gold. And so then you realize that you can almost put these arbitrary things in front of you to keep leveling up, to keep growing, because deep down we just want to get to know ourselves at the deepest level.
Yes.
And so the more we tap into our potential, the more we reach our higher awareness or whatever, the more energy we almost get, and the more we grow, and the more we feel good, right?
Yeah, it's like an ultimate loop, right? It's like I get more energy the more I grow, and it's almost like, we talk about this infinite energy and finite energy, right? And most people think about energy in a finite way, where really it's not.
So I do want to touch on the topic of transcendence, because you've talked about it and you've really alluded to it a couple different ways. And I think that when we kind of boil all of this down and we take, the beginning of this conversation, the middle of this conversation, and getting towards the end, I kind of want to touch on the fact that, there is a transcendent aspect to this, that it's really all just about layers and levels of consciousness, right? And I think that the reason that you've been so successful is because you're operating from a different place. And I don't think people quite understand that. I'm not even sure if you understand that. I think you do.
Yeah.
I think you do.
I think I do.
But I think you're breaking down the fact that you do.
Yes.
And I think that's almost where you're at in life too.
Yes.
Is you're kind of like, oh shoot, I am different, in a way, but you're not. You're just like everyone else.
Yeah.
You just are operating from a state of consciousness that everybody else has access to, that they've yet to access. And so I guess on the topic of transcendence, like, I mean, where do you go from here?
Well, I mean,
Are you a spiritual person? Are you religious? Are you?
I would say I'm spiritual. I was raised Catholic. I'm Italian, and from Italy, everyone's raised Catholic. I'm baptized and all that, but I haven't gone to church in a minute.
Same. So I was raised Catholic, and then I'm spiritual. I wouldn't identify as one of those.
I wouldn't say as at the moment, and I'm not saying that might change in the future. I don't identify with any specific religion. I'm spiritual, meaning I believe in the universe. I believe in like a greater force, whatever you might call that, universal consciousness, whatever that is, God, whatever you want to call it. I believe in something. I think there's something greater at work than what we understand. And so there's something we can't quite explain now, whether that's God, universe, whatever. I don't know exactly the answer to that, but I would say, yeah, I'm spiritual in that way. I believe that there's something that is stronger and greater than me, right? That you can kind of draw from and you can tap into. And so that I feel like gives me a lot of peace in a way, right? And I wasn't always this way. And so this was kind of a journey and journey, just kind of a discovery type thing. And so even me just 5 or 6 years ago when I first got into sales, I wasn't there. I wasn't in a spiritual place at all. I really just never even really worried about spirituality in that way, or just kind of thought deeper about it. But then again, it's just kind of like that journey of the more you go through things, the more you grow, the more you push yourself for material things or worldly things in a way, the more you understand that there's something greater. And I feel like the older I get, the more things I do, the more I see it. And the more I see life play out, the more I see kind of this great, it's hard to kind of pinpoint quite what that is, but the more you see an influence that's not quite just you.
Well, you have to, yeah, and I agree. I'm the same exact way. And I feel like Door to Door almost showed me to God, because I feel like it almost showed me to myself. And I feel like the more I see in myself, the more potential I see, and the more I realize it's not even my potential, but I'm tapping into another potential.
Yep.
And I almost believe that we're all just conduits of a message, of an energy, of something else other than what's here. I've always understood that this isn't the ultimate reality, and that I think that man is just, his job is simply to transcend every aspect of the outer world, but it's really a internal process.
I agree, and I can't say I've always known that. I feel like I've learned that over time, and I'm quite probably not ultimately there. I'm learning as I go, but it's something that I've started to realize more and more the last 4 years maybe.
Yeah, I think buying the Ferrari will help you with that. What do you feel like a person's purpose is?
Yeah, that's another one. I don't feel like everyone's purpose is the same, right? Obviously, we all have a different purpose, and so it's whatever's authentic to you. Going back to authenticity, it's whatever you feel like is really like what you're meant to do, or what you want to do, or you enjoy doing. Ultimately, now, me personally, it goes back to transcendence, kind of what we talked about, and I feel like I've kind of landed on this. Yeah. I kind of find it hard to pinpoint one purpose that's a specific objective in my life, because it's a moving target. You're always there's not one thing that like I want to do this one thing. It's a moving target, but I think the ultimate goal of that moving target is to get you to become as much of a higher level version of yourself as you possibly can. And so if I was to say, like, what's the ultimate goal of your life in a way, is to almost be the maxed out version of myself in any possible way, right? And so if I was to be born, and let's say, and I'm making this up as a concept, but let's say you're born and there's this imaginary version of yourself 100 years from now, and you're born with potential, and whatever that potential is in all aspects of life. And then it's up to you from there to take on that journey. And then when you're done with that journey, you kind of get to score yourself. Like, hey, I had this potential, right? I was born with this. And did I achieve it? Did I max it? Did I not max it? How much was left on the table? Kind of thing. And then the ultimate purpose, I think, is to become the most elevated evolved version of yourself that you can possibly be. And that's in every aspect of life. That's emotional, that's consciousness, obviously, like have a higher level of understanding and awareness of yourself and others.
They almost go hand in hand, right? And I think that's what I've realized recently, is just that your emotional state is truly the only thing that matters. If you can operate from a pure emotional state and it's a high vibration, I'd rather be operating from a high vibration and a high state of being in which I love myself, I love life, I am grateful for everything. I'd rather be in that state on the couch and have nothing than have everything and hate my life.
100%. 100%. And the two rarely go hand in hand, right? If you're operating from that place, it's very rare that unless you choose to, right? And there's many people that do, right? Unless you choose to just completely own nothing and zen out and operate from that place. But it's very rare that somebody that is just not a monk, basically, and is completely isolated from reality, and you operate from that place, is very rare that you'd be in a bad spot, right?
See, and this is where I think that, for me, I always figured I could go be a monk. I don't know if I told you this, but I always had a fail-safe when throughout my entire business career up until this point, that was, I can always go be a monk. I know that none of this actually matters, and it's a game.
Yeah.
And so I know that if this actually all went to shit, I could just go be a monk, and I know that I'd probably find more fulfillment doing that. But then I realized, and I met a mentor that showed me that, no, you could do it here. And it's almost like in America, Americans need more help than anybody, than any other country, because we have the most money, but we're the least happy. We just spoke with a guy I won't mention, but his net worth is close to $1 billion, and we spent 2-3 hours with him, and he was talking about how some of the most, probably the most unhappy people he's ever met in his entire life are the wealthiest. And he mentioned many billionaires' names that I'm not going to mention, but
yeah, everyone would know them. Yes.
And I can tell that you're just happy.
Yeah.
And you're almost a monk, bro.
I don't think I am a monk.
You're getting there, bro. Pretty soon you're gonna start floating, bro. I feel like when I'm around you, you're just kind of floating around, bro. Like,
no,
doing 500 accounts, you're just in, you're out. Like, it's just fucking energy, you know?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like, and again, like I feel like I'm getting to that place to where I'm fully a piece in a way. I'm not. I mean, I'm not there, right? I'm not there. Peace. I don't think I'm fully there. I don't think I've figured out everything I need to figure out in life. There's many things I need to figure out. But overall, it's been a journey. As I wasn't always this way. I mean, if you probably talk to somebody that knew me like 3 or 4 years ago, they would tell you very different things about who I was, 4 years ago than who I am. And so it's just kind of that, I think, that journey. But ultimately, it's just that, like, you talked about presence. And presence is, I mean, not to be cliche, but like that's really all that exists.
Well, that's the
present moment. And so, like, if you're, and I'm sorry, guys, you off there, but if you're always living your life miserable emotion in the present, just for some sort of imaginary gain in the future, and you can't actually drive fulfillment and emotional well-being in the present, that's all that exists. And so that's all we're really living at all times. Is like, if I'm miserable at all times for an imaginary goal in the future, like, what am I really living? That's my life, right? And so you want to find that fulfillment. And
the greatest gift that you could ever give another person is your authentic presence. There's no necklace I've given my mom designer necklace, this, that, and the other, and I've realized the best thing I've ever given her is just being able to be there with her. I think I could give you a Ferrari, or I could just give you my presence. Which one's truly more valuable?
I mean, ultimately, right? Like, if we're really gonna go deep, I guess we're off a tangent here. But I mean, all that at the end of the day, and all that really, really matters is really just the connections and the relationships you have. That's really what sticks with you. Is like the emotions that you feel, right? You have you're just having like an experience, right? If you look at life as an experience, what is really what matters is what you actually experience, and what you experience is your feelings, your internal state of being, the connections that you have, the people you care about, the bonds that you share with people. That's it.
And those are only going to be as good as you're connected to yourself. And I think that is why you're so good at what you do, is because you are so in tune with yourself. And you're so present, because I think inherently you actually have found this deep love for yourself. And so when you just walk around, or you go into a home and you're talking to a client, or you're talking with me or a sales rep, everybody feels the presence. And that's why you're where you're at.
I would say so. I try to be as present as I can. I'm not perfect. I'm not present all the time. I get carried away in things just like everybody else. But the more I learn and the more I kind of go through this thing, I just always land back on that. It's just like this. It's really what matters. It's right here, right now.
And the peace is everything. I think that's the whole goal. Yeah. I think everybody's purpose is just to find peace.
Yeah.
And then express that authentic version of themselves in their own unique way.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with that. And there's many ways that kind of can take place, right? But I think ultimately from that level, I think that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do to end this podcast off is I want to kind of rapid fire some questions.
All right.
And then we can just end it. This has been awesome, dude. I really appreciate it.
1:15 a.m.
It's 1:15 a.m.
It's going.
It is 1:15. So if I took, so you know, you have a sizable net worth for someone your age. You've accomplished a lot financially. You don't have the Ferrari, but you will have that soon.
I don't know.
When you're getting a Ferrari soon, but if I have anything to say about it, but regardless, if I took all of your money,
yeah,
solar didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do?
What would I do to make it back if I lost everything, or what would I do?
I'm just asking you. What would you do? I'll let you run with it.
If I was flat broke right now,
I took all of it.
Everything.
I gave you your clothes. You didn't even have a place to stay. Maybe you have a car. You have a beat truck.
I'd just go sell something tomorrow.
What would you do?
Solar did not exist. I would find the next highest level ticket item I could sell at a high level volume, right? And I'd just go sell that, and I know how to do it. And so I would just start off of that and just start back from zero. I would literally just find the highest level ticket I can find with the highest margin per sell I can find with a reasonable volume, and I would just literally get in my car tomorrow, go sell. Go sell some stuff and make some money, get myself out of that hole, and get back to a place to where I can actually be present, right? Mm-hmm. And then grow from there. Because, I mean, the biggest thing, I think, the most important thing you could ever do, and that's where I saw my life change, is when you get out of survival mode. And I feel like most people never do, unfortunately. Like, most people just live paycheck to paycheck, week to week, month to month, whatever. And so you're always in that state of like, am I going to make rent next month? Am I going to pay my mortgage next month? Am I going to eat next month? And that kind of grows. And even when people make more and more money, if you keep raising that lifestyle, right? I've seen people make $1 million a year, $2 million a year. They're still broke because they spend so much money. They're like, oh, I'm making $100,000 a month. I'm spending $100,000 a month. Right. They're still in survival. They're making a lot of money, but they're in survival. They're like, I have to keep doing this. And so I think the biggest gift to give yourself is buy yourself out of survival. And that's when you can really figure out all the things we've been talking about. You can't figure any of that out if you're just worried about what you're going to do next month. And so for me, when I got out of that, which was probably my first year out of college, I got my visa. Visa to me was survival. I'm like, I need the visa that is survival mode. I need the visa to be here, survive. Once I got that, I felt like I was able to kind of get out of it, and I got a different perspective on everything, right? And then all of these other things flow. Awesome. That's what I would do.
Cool. Next is, if I could give you, so kind of flip end, if I could give you $1 billion tomorrow, mm-hmm. So you had $1 billion.
Okay.
Would you buy the Ferrari?
Yes.
Okay. If I could give you $1 billion tomorrow, what would you do? What would you do tomorrow? And then what would you do, I guess, throughout the next year?
It's a good question. Honestly, frankly, what would I do tomorrow with $1 billion? Probably not a ton different to what I'm doing right now. Not really. I mean, I would maybe tone down a couple things, work a little less, right? But I would still keep the core of what I'm doing just because I enjoy it. And so I wouldn't really drastically change my life in any way. I love where I'm at. I love where I live, or all the people around me. I wouldn't drastically change anything. I would probably just take some more freedom, take some time, probably disappear for a few months and just travel around. But I also get bored of that in like 2 weeks and come back probably. So nothing crazy other than I would just find ways to make that have an impact, right? Probably over everything else is just really figuring out how can I use that to drive as much impact as I can in the ways that I can do that, and kind of put it to work in that way and buy some cool stuff. But that's just cool. Beyond the point.
So what makes you happy?
A lot of things. Well, it's not really. It's just like it goes back, like being authentic in a way. I mean, people I love, right, make me happy. All sorts of things, right? But it all comes back to the same thing. I mean, I love sports. Soccer makes me happy. hanging out with friends makes me happy.
You like
my
sales?
girlfriend makes me happy. Sales, I wouldn't say makes me happy. It makes me fulfilled, which is different, right? And I don't think it makes me happy. And when you talk sales, I honestly, I kind of separate the two things. I think leadership makes me fulfilled.
Okay.
The day-to-day selling of selling a customer, it's fine. I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
It's cool. You're helping people, but there's not like that's not what I'm passionate about. At the end of the day, is we obviously want to make sure everyone's taken care of. But what really drives me and makes me fulfilled is the leadership side of things that you get in sales, meaning you get to see other people grow and develop and learn through your lessons and other people's lessons and grow and kind of turn into their best self. So that's, I think, the ultimate fulfillment there. So I wouldn't say sales makes me happy, makes me fulfilled from a work perspective. Happiness, I think you find in relationships over everything. So the people I love, care about, and just spending time with them.
Where do you feel like you are weakest?
In general, just in my life, probably still, even though I've gotten so much better at it, probably relationships, I would say. And I'm still.
What about relationships?
Well, I just like I said, I get very obsessed by things. I just get driven by things, right? And so I wouldn't say I'm bad at relationships. I tend to be absent a lot of the times, and so not given enough attention to certain relationships or neglect or whatever you want to call that. I've done that many times, and I'm getting much better. I'm way better than I was 5 years ago, right? Night and day. But I feel like still that's kind of the hardest one to crack. Is really how do you find that ultimate balance in between being a highly driven person, having a billion different things spinning on your plates, while also maintaining a lot of good balance in your relationships. I don't know if that's fully possible. I feel like you compromise back and forth, and there's different periods to where you're leaning towards this way, leaning towards that way. So I don't think I've quite found that perfect balance, even though I'm much better at that. But probably that relationships in general. Sometimes appreciating things. I tend to be very driven towards things to where I dismiss things that I achieve pretty quickly. Just kind of get on to the next, and it's like, and then that's something I've also been getting much better at is like smell the flowers, right? Kind of appreciate the present, enjoy where you're at. That's
been my whole year. Is I've just been smelling the flowers. I'm ready to get back in the swing of things, bro. I think we both have some big things in the future, so I'm pumped for it. And
I agree.
we'll be collabing on some stuff. But any book recommendations?
A lot. Depends on what for.
Okay, give me one for sales.
Sales, I liked. My favorite one's probably The Way of the Wolf, Jordan Belfort.
Okay.
I've read a lot of different sales books. I would say that's one of the ones that probably had the most impact on how I sell. That was probably that was the second book I've ever read on sales. I read Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. That's a basic. That one's huge. That's everyone's
I listened
first
to that
book.
10 times, yeah.
So that was great. And then Jordan Belfort was the second one I listened to, and that one stuck. I feel like to this day, how I sell goes back to some of those principles I learned like very early on from that book.
Okay. What about spiritual?
Spiritual. There's a lot of them, I would say, that I've enjoyed. The coolest one, or at least the one I would say had the biggest impact on me, was Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, right? It's really, really cool book. You ever read it? Mm-mm. You know what it is? It's a really cool book. Basically, and I read this at a time in my life where I was actually probably having the hardest time in my life, I would say. I was just going through a lot of different things personally, work, a bunch of different things. And I was just really kind of literally the hardest spot I've ever been in my life. And I read the book, and the book essentially is, it's this, Viktor Frankl, right? It's basically the author is describing his experience in a concentration camp during World War II. And he spends the first half of the book just describing the conditions of what it was like. And then essentially he goes into when describing his psyche, right? And he is analyzing all the prisoners in the concentration camp, and he's there. And ultimately, what comes out of the book is that he was able to find meaning and happiness in the concentration camp, which was arguably the worst possible condition a human being could be in. And what that, long story short, what you take away from that is everything is in your mind, and the way you perceive things, no matter how good or bad they are externally, what really matters is the way you frame them in your mind. And he was able to turn something that's crazy and horrible into something where he was actually happy into. And so that's the whole thing. And then it just kind of teaches you like everything's internal and not external.
Yep.
Long story short.
So 2 more questions. What is maybe 1 to 3 actionable steps that you want to leave with the audience or viewer?
1, 2, 3 actionable steps. The number one, I think we've talked about it this entire time, is like be authentic and follow your intuition, probably more than you think you should. And I just think inside, deep down inside of you, you always know what you need to do, or you always know what you need. And usually when you don't act on it, you second guess, third guess yourself. You think about it, you bring the brain, right, the logical mind into the equation too much. You just put yourself in bad spots. And so if you just trust yourself to know that like deep down inside, you know what's right for you, and you can operate out of that, just be impulsive, like get things done and fail. And if you can fail, like what's the worst thing that can happen?
Fail fast, fail forward. Fail
fast, keep going. You're just going to learn so much more about yourself. You'll be so much better. And the ultimate reward you're going to get is not what you get, it's who you are. And the only way you become who you want to be is you fail a lot of times, right? And so you do that.
Cool. And the last question, you've talked a lot about like becoming and all of these different things and the person, and it's all about internal. I want to ask you, who are you?
It's a great question. And again, I think it's hard to define, right? It's really hard. Anything you can say, who am I? Who are you, right? It's anything I'm going to say, it's a label I'm putting on myself. You are whatever, right? You are you, your consciousness, you're alive, you're here. You can think, you can smell, you can move. Anything else you become is a result of the labels you put on yourself. So I am whatever I believe I am. And I can change that belief about myself at any given moment. And whatever that belief reflects is what I'm going to be, right? And so I am now the result of all the choices that I've made over the last 27 years. That's who I am at this very moment. And that reflects my identity. I could change my identity tomorrow and I would be somebody else in a week. So I think that's a moving target. I don't think that's something that's fixed. I don't think you are this person and that's who you are. You are an evolving being. You're an evolving thing. And so you just want to be careful about the things you believe about yourself because they become real, right? And so that's what it is. At my core, I would just say I am a human. I'm a person. I'm having fun. I love what I do. I care about people at my core. I want to help. I have good intentions. And I just want to be the best person I can be and help others be the best they can be and inspire. That's really it. But then from there is like fill in blank. You are whatever you want to be, just blank. That's what it is. And then you can be that, right?
Cool.
That's my thought.
Well, I appreciate you, bro.
Of course, bro. It was fun. It was a good time.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. It's good. It's good being on.